Jean-Dominique Ingres was 82 years old when he put the finishing touches on his Bain Turc, or the Turkish Bath. So, is this astonishing work the overheated, intensely voyeuristic, imagined paradise of an 82-year-old man who had never once been to Turkey, or for that matter to North Africa or the Middle East? Well, yes, but it is so much more. It is such a deliberate and planned painting, and Ingres guides us very precisely on how to experience its wonders, relating it to Ingres' life work as well as to the obsessions and desires and art genres of the day and of the past. For lovers of Ingres, some of these figures are very familiar. The woman in the foreground, with her arms raised above her head, gazing directly at the viewer. We have met her before, and it matters. Here is a quite similar figure in Ingres' 1842 Odalisque with Slave, painted 20 years before his Turkish Bath. By putting an Odalisque figure in his Turkish Bath, he opens up the whole painterly tradition of the highly eroticized splendors of the Odalisque, and a tradition Ingres was acutely aware of. What's an Odalisque? The term gets very murky, but at core, it's a woman semi-reclining, usually nude, in a state of partial undress, often looking directly at the viewer, but not always, but in what should be a private space, and one that's represented as exotic. But Ingres raises the pitch of the Odalisque to feverish, investing it with all the exoticism and painterly erotics of Orientalism, something we'll return to in another video. But basically, Orientalism was a 19th century space of dreams and imagination rather than the literal realities of North Africa and Middle East to which it referred. Orientalism was a country of mind and imagination and aesthetics, and perhaps of desire and voyeurism run a bit amok, rather than a place. But in painting and in sculpture of the 19th century, it was quite a world. And this is one of the great paintings of the 19th century, and perhaps of all time. It's Ingres' stunning 1814 Grande Odalisque, painted almost 50 years before his Turkish Bath. I find this work absolutely mesmerizing. The softness of her flesh, the inviting beauty of her languorous pose, her face and engaging and almost inquiring glance toward the viewer, the exquisite rendering of her hands and feet, the feather fan and fabric painted with such finesse it feels like it would flutter in the softest of breezes. And there's a degree of finish to the painting so extreme you have no sense of brushwork, but rather a glazed surface which gives no indication of the artistry of its making and opens up instead an illusionist space that feels utterly real. Of course, in coming decades, the very truth of the surface of the visible world as we perceive it would be called into question by artists and scientists alike, but photography was still in the future, and in the world of 1814, this was a spectacular triumph of painting and of the creating of the illusion of a very real, dreamy, exotic, and erotic world you can almost pass bodily into. The influence of one painter upon another is often a matter of real struggle in an attempt to incorporate and somehow triumph over an earlier masterpiece. Ingres, along with most of his contemporaries, were haunted and inspired by Titian's Venus of Urbino, which is very much a precursor to every Odalisque that would follow. Some sense of the dominance in the world of painting of Titian's Venus can be seen in Zeffani's meta-picture of the Uffizi Gallery, painted a few years before Ingres' birth. Here we see an assemblage of Raphaels and Dürers and Bronzinos and Da Vinci's, but it is clear the real attention is on the Titian. It was considered a sort of high watermark that no painter could ever rival, and yet so many fabulous works have been created in a kind of artistic engagement or even struggle with that painting. And just as the Titian influenced Ingres, Ingres' Odalisques have influenced almost every painter coming after. We'll get back to the Turkish Bath in a moment, but the Odalisque in that painting is such a part of a living tradition, we can do well to dive into Odalisques for a minute. Here are some of my favorites. Okay, we will start with this magnificent precursor to the genre of the Odalisque, the 1510 Sleeping Venus by Giorgioni, who was the teacher of Titian. What a magnificent work. I love those blue hills in the background, the sense of space and spatiality, the smoothness of her flesh, the contrasts of the bold, almost scarlet reds, the pale blue of the hills, the greenery around her. It is such a lovely painting. Here is Edward Manet's 1863 Olympia, which he was finishing up about the same time that Ingres was finishing up his Turkish Bath. I am utterly enthralled by this painting. The incense burners, the luminous orange of the fruits with the pomegranate tucked behind, the lush deep reds of blankets and cushion, the blues of the necklace cast casually upon the floor, and the pale, pale softness of her skin, the slightly stained soles of her lovely bare feet. It all feels so tactile, with scent everywhere, touch so engaged it's a kind of synesthetic, erotic sublime, and her ear is so clearly drawn as if waiting for a word. This is Jules Joseph Lefebvre's 1874 Odalisque. And now, jumping ahead to the 20th century, Henri Matisse was fascinated by the Odalisque form and did a whole series of them early in his career. I love the vibrancy and quiet passion and really ravishing beauty and wild colors of these. And Modigliani, another 20th century painter, absolutely enthralled by the expressive possibilities of the Odalisque form. I so love her face, her upturned arm, her curves, her inwardness. And then, to return to Ingres, do we not have a very real sense of paintings in active dialogue with one another throughout the ages? Today we've touched on the Odalisque figure in Ingres' The Turkish Bath, and we have three more figures to look at, including this enigmatic woman who appears in Ingres' work again and again and again. And we will also talk about the meaning of Orientalism next time. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe and watch the next in the series, or subscribe and check out the series Mythology Now, which looks at how figures from classical mythology are continually being reinvented in the most vital and fascinating ways. Thank you for watching.